Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, your staff was very nice and welcoming too, and everybody was delighted to be there, including myself. And everybody was oohing and awing over the big bear painting. Yeah, and so I interviewed a one of the customers, and I interviewed Mackenzie Perez. She was going to send me some photos, and I forgot my camera, so she was taking shots with her phone. If yeah, I know she'll do it, but maybe a reminder. And let's see, and then I'd like to talk to you. So I'm just going to put you on speakerphone, and then I'm going to hit my record button and get a couple of comments about the event. Okay, hold on. Lynn, are you there then? Let me try it again. Okay, now it's on speaker. Well, of course, I have your name and title and all of that. It's 45 years now for the World Wildlife and almost Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation.
That is correct. This is year number 45. I started the organization in 1977.
Yeah. Yes, and it's what sort of journey has it been? Is it like any other endeavor of that magnitude that it had its ups and downs?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Ups and downs and back and forth, and it's
Yeah.
been ins and outs. It's been a struggle in a lot of ways. It's of course been endless joys and rewards and sorrows. There's not probably any aspect of life itself that's not been a part of starting and running and being a very big part of wildlife rescue.
How many animals do you have at the present moment? I know they come and go, but on average.
Well, we rescue, as far as the native species who are rescued for rehabilitation, we rescue about 10,000 animals every year. We have around 600 permanent residents who are everyone from bears to marmosets to capuchin monkeys to goats and cows, because we do farmed animal rescue as well. And unfortunately, some native species, coyotes and bobcats and foxes, who also can't be set free because of what's been done to them, and lots of parrots. So it's quite a diverse group of animals who all have a less than ideal history behind them, and certainly a better life now that they are at Wildlife Rescue and in sanctuary.
Oh, absolutely. Are these the animals then that are making the art, the ones who are permanently with you?
Yes, for the most part, that's correct. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally, there will be a member of a native species who kind of gets into it as well. Of course, we do this and started doing this, a dozen or more years ago, without it being anything to do with the sale of the paintings. But we started doing this as an enrichment activity for the animals who are permanent residents. And as everyone can well imagine, wild animals are accustomed to doing what they want when they want to do it, and roaming free and being their own individual, unique selves. And when things happen to them where they have to live in captivity, then one of the things that we strive to alleviate for them is boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And this was something that we started doing for them, just giving them something to do as an activity to alleviate the boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them just really took to it and just, basically had fun with it. Animals do play in the wild. It's something that they do. People don't think of that, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
And this was something that became an enjoyable activity for a lot of them. And then, we just did it on and off for years, different times of the year. And someone said to me once, well, these are such unique works of art. There might be people who would be interested in seeing them. And frankly, it hadn't occurred to me. And so I thought, well, that's probably not a bad idea. And so we kind of went to our membership and said, if anybody's interested, the animals have created these, and if anybody's interested, we'd like to show them. And then people actually started offering to buy them as obviously a fundraising effort. And that's kind of pretty much how Artistic Animals, the event itself, was conceived.
Is that one of your most popular outreach, as they call it, events, programs, things?
It is very popular, Barrett. It's a smallish event still because we don't. This is not something a lot of animals participate in, but it is a very popular event because, of course, of the uniqueness of it. It's something that when these animals do this, they do this fully of their own accord. They do it in their own way, expressing whatever it is they choose to express when they're doing it. And so I think that is one of the many things that people really do find interesting about this particular event, is that these paintings are truly, one of a kind and will never happen again, animal to animal.
Yeah. There are other, and I'm not stealing your limelight or anything. There are stories on YouTube of animals making art, and it seems to be a thing. And mammals, they do play and explore. So what they're sort of doing is fooling around with this stuff, and it's not an issue of creating a masterpiece, but they're just having fun with something physical.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah, and I have noticed that too over the past several years, that more and more people started doing it. I saw and thought, well, wait, we've been doing that for years. But
I see. Do you think that you are the sort of inventor of the process? I had no idea.
Yeah, like I said, I was just something we started doing just kind of on our own. But the good thing about it, of course, is that anytime, as I said, anytime an animal can't be set free, then those of us who care, who have their care as our responsibility, the thing we must do for them is everything we can to make life in captivity. It will never, I don't ever believe, be enjoyable for them.
No,
because
I
don't
see.
think they, but to make it somewhat, again, less boring and perhaps interesting. And yeah, you're right. There are others who are doing this now, and I think as long as the animals are having fun with it and they find it engaging and stimulating, then I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. I think it's a lot of fun and a little exotic. And so what kinds of animals are making the art? Bears, a chihuahua, a wolf dog?
Yeah, we rescued a chihuahua from animal control, many years ago. He is quite ancient now, and he likes to get involved in the process also. So everyone from bears to goats to monkeys. Every so often there's one of the pigs will get involved. Cow. It really does depend on whether the animals say, yes, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. This is fun, or whether they look at it and think, not interested. If they're not interested, then that's where it stops. So every year there are different animals who want to do this, who decide to do this, and again, that's perhaps what makes it so unique for the people who come and buy the paintings, is that it's never the same animals. And of course the works of art themselves are just as different as the animals.
Yeah, and any one animal, any animals, I guess the primates have more dexterity to make a painting than the others because they have hands and opposable thumbs. Or do you have any?
Well, that is true. That is true. They have the opposable thumbs. They have, we have what they have because, of course, they came first. So we have hands like they do.
Yeah, that's right. They came first. That's right.
That's right. So yes, they do have the dexterity, but it's interesting when pigs will take to something like this because you see, as we all know, they are very tactile with their noses and they're constantly rooting about looking for things. So that's what they use. It's their instrument, if you will, is their noses, and sometimes their little hooves and all, to really, scratch at the canvas and work with the paint there, and their noses who spread it around and smell it and have fun with it. And so every animal has their own unique way and choice of working with the paints, working with the canvas, and creating whatever it is they feel like. And you're right, it's not, the goal is not for some quote unquote masterpiece to be created, because animals don't get into the ego part of it. Non-human animals don't get into the ego part of it the way humans do, where we're so worried about it. Does this look okay or not? They're just enjoying what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you have any art form, whether it's painting, drawing, music, dance, whatever it may be, that the person doing it, the artist themselves, when they're just doing it for the sheer pleasure of it, I think you end up with a very different, a very different end, a very different result, a very different kind of masterpiece, because it wasn't so either contrived or worried over.
Yeah,
And I think that's what we have here.
Yeah, I definitely would call it abstract art, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a terrific, and must be difficult to think of things for them to do. Entertaining anybody who's bored, that's a challenge.
It is a challenge. And animals, non-human animals are so incredibly intelligent, and so their minds are constantly working in ways we do not even understand.
Mm-hmm.
We have what we call an enrichment drive every year, where we ask people to send money so that we can buy different types of things for them, different types of tools and toys and objects, so that we constantly are giving them things that they can do if they want to do them, to either play with or to investigate or to do whatever they want with it. And yeah, it is a challenge, and one that I think that a lot of people don't realize that the animals face is, again, picture yourself stuck in your house all day, no television, no nothing to do, no ability to leave. And we have to remember that animals in sanctuary, they're still prisoners. It's a sanctuary, it's absolutely true. But they don't get to leave like they would like to leave. They don't get to be in the wild where they want to be. And so mitigating anything that is unpleasant for them and making their lives more interesting is, I feel, a moral responsibility on our part.
Yeah, that's wonderfully well said, and very explanatory to people who don't have that knowledge. I've forgotten, Lyn. I know you were young when you started all of this. Were you working at a veterinary hospital or something like that, or how did you get in with animals?
Yeah, well, as far as how I started caring about them, I seem to have been born that way. I just there wasn't a time in my life from the time I was a little kid to where I wasn't trying to rescue somebody. And some of us are just fortunate, and we know why we're here from early on.
Yeah.
And that's always been why I've been here, is to do what I can in some small way to help any animal who can be helped. And there are a great many people at Wildlife Rescue who have been with Wildlife Rescue over these 45 years, who've come and gone, and many people who are with us now, who have made it all possible and made it all what it is today. And certainly our donors. We couldn't do anything without them, their contributions, and that's why Wildlife Rescue is 45 years old and a great success. And you know Barrett very well that your wonderful parents were with this organization way at the very beginning.
Well, yeah,
and
you were
I think of them also. Now, anytime I hear your name, I immediately think of them as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, they deserve the credit. Yeah, you were one of my first feature stories. I was the features editor at the Hoofprint. And I have that, and I shot you a photograph of you standing next to your refrigerator, and I think that's the space that the raccoon was living on. In your humble beginnings was on top of the fridge. It seemed like that, but that's what I wanted to know, because there's a woman, she may have been an early supporter, Donna Pittman. And see, Donna lived with Pody on this old house on Park. It was a real dump back then. But she was interested in animals because she worked at a veterinary. She was a vet tech, And I just wondered if you had that same sort of background where, that you went into doing that for occupation, or did you just jump out of high school and start WRR?
No, what I did actually was I was a vet tech for a time, and that was out in California. I went out to California when I was pretty young because that was the 60s, and that was, if you were fortunate and adventurous, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And
I would have done that in the 60s if I had been out of school. That was the place to be.
It was Wonderful. My family all being here, I did come back to San Antonio. I did work at the San Antonio Zoo for a few years, but I saw all the horrors that are what happens in zoos. I do not think that animals belong in zoos, and I kept what I kept seeing, again, being a native San Antonian and all, I kept seeing that anytime there was a possum or a raccoon who was either injured or somewhere he or she, quote unquote, shouldn't be,
Yeah.
they were just killed. I mean, that was it. That's all that was done. The police were dispatched. They were killed.
Yeah.
Nobody asked questions. Nobody thought of anything else. And there was, you know how sometimes, Barry, you get in your head, somebody ought to do something. This is terrible. Somebody ought to do something.
Yeah.
And that kept roiling around in my brain. And finally, I said, Lyn, go ahead. God, be that somebody. Do something. And I wanted to start an organization that really, truly, not just in word, but in deed and in philosophy and ethic, existed to do for the animals what the animals wanted doing for themselves, which was, again, to be helped, which perhaps they do or don't not want. There's no way of knowing that. But then to be left alone. That is the whole point of rehabilitation for native species, for any wild animal, is rehabilitation and release.
Yes. Yes.
And as you probably remember, the first permanent resident I rescued was a bobcat kitten who'd been declawed with a pair of pliers.
Oh, Lord.
And stuck in an aquarium in a pet shop. Well, that was in '78, and that said to me right then and there, I said, she's not the only animal who's going to need a sanctuary.
Yeah.
And at the time, we called it refuge, but it was very clear to me early on that a sanctuary was going to be part of the rehabilitation process for those who couldn't go free.
Right.
And that was the plan. I can honestly say that was the plan from the very beginning, was to have a 200-acre sanctuary. I mean, there are some things that you just know have to happen, and if you're determined enough and absolutely just refuse to be beaten down by the challenge.
That's right. And the naysayers and the naysayers and the other people and the jealous people and the dumb people. Did you face that stuff? Was that part of the downs in this process?
The people always.
Don't they? Yeah. Don't they?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we are not the most compassionate of species and are tolerant, and so many people said to me, this is stupid, nobody cares about these animals, why bother?
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of them, and I just kept trying to get people to understand that it doesn't matter if there are 200 billion possums in the world, this one and this one and this one is suffering. She's hurting.
Yeah.
She's injured. She's scared. She needs help. It doesn't matter that the species overall is doing well. What Wildlife Rescue has always been there to do is to help that individual animal who is in trouble.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just thought it foolish, and I simply never did. To me, I couldn't imagine a better way to spend my life, young or older, doing this kind of work for animals who simply needed some help and understanding and tolerance. And it's, I mean, again, it's the work itself is just profoundly rewarding and worthwhile. And it is something that, of course, now, 45 years later, I can look back on it and really say, yeah, I've given something, to this process called life.
Yeah.
That is, that's made it worth doing, and not just for me, but for others. And I think that's what most of us strive for, is how can a life be rewarding? And it can only be rewarding if we stop thinking solely of ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I noticed your staff. I bet you have a lot of staff to choose from, because animals are sort of cause célèbre, if I'm saying that correctly, in these times.
Yeah.
And I bet you have young people who are taking up your cause, because it seems to be sort of the thing.
It has become very much in vogue to care about animals.
Yeah, in vogue.
Which is great. And it's great as long as people understand what it takes. And that's something that we have a lot of people working wildlife rescue who are very, very young, and the ones who come and who stay are the ones who understand how important it is.
Yeah.
There are a great many others who think that it is kind of, glamorous and in vogue and all that, and then they get into it, and a few weeks into it, and they're, no, I don't want to do this. This is too hard. This is too heartbreaking. This is too many long hours. And I understand that. It's all those things. But for those people of any age who get involved and see the reward and see the work for what it is, that you're caring more about someone other than yourself,
yes,
then that's something that you've got to figure that out on your own. And once you figure it out, then people like that do stay. And if they don't stay at Wildlife Rescue, they still stay in the field, in the movement itself, the animal protection movement, which is wonderful. I mean, if we have people come to us and who stay for a year or two and then say, I really want to go on and do this in Africa or do this in another state, in the United States or whatever it is, we say yes, please do. The more people doing this everywhere, the better.
Absolutely, especially with this, so many species dwindling of all kinds. I just did some interviews at the Lake Mitchell Audubon Center, and the birds and the drought and falling out of the sky and all of that. How many on staff do you have, veterinarians or PhDs that are zoologists or biologists? I'm sure you must have a few.
Nope, no biologists or zoologists, but yes, we have a full-time veterinarian and 3 or 4 vet techs with us at all times.
Yeah, okay.
The thing that is somewhat unique, I think, about Wildlife Rescue is that we don't try to kind of get into the heads of the animals and understand why they're doing what they're doing because frankly, I don't think we can ever understand them truly.
Oh, I see. And that's the function of biologists and zoologists, is to understand the animal completely, whereas you're there just to tend to them and get them on their way or to keep them at home.
Yeah, and to certainly not manage them. I mean, that's
right.
A lot of what goes into biologists. They're managing herds and managing. Animals don't need to be managed, and they certainly don't want to be managed. And
I see.
The whole premise of Wildlife Rescue is leave them the hell alone. Let them be who they are, not who we think they should be, or who we think they are, or give them what we think they want.
Right.
I mean, we can't know any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, people are always saying to me, well, these animals really like, and I said, no, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
I don't know. Because I am just a simple, block-headed human being.
Yeah.
And the difference between our species and all the diversity of other species that exist on this planet, I mean, I just feel like they are so far and away above us in so many ways that to me, all I can do is to try to do what, from watching them in the wild is always our measure. It's always our yardstick. It's always the thing that we look to when we say, what do we think now that these, like with the primates who we get out of zoos and we get out of research labs and we get out of private hands, what do we think we can give them that'll be something that they would have chosen for themselves if they've been allowed to do so?
Right.
Yeah. And not try to manage them or try to make assumptions about them, but just try to look at who they are in the wild and then mimic that as best we can.
Yes, I see. Now, you explained something to me. I have been enlightened now that as the other fields are trying to sort of get in their head, but your job is to care for them physically, and what how they live their life, that's their business.
It's very much and entirely their business.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm sure you, like everyone else, have seen these videos of someone who has a crow in a cage, and then they give this crow or a raven or a parrot or monkey or whoever all these tests.
Right.
Oh, I can't believe you figured out how to do that. I just marvel at the arrogance of our species who thinks that we have the right to test these animals, number one.
Yeah.
To assume number two, that they're not all that bright. And here, let me test you so you can tell me just how bright you are.
Yeah.
I mean, who the hell do we think we are? It's none of our business how bright they are. What our business, I believe, on this planet is stop destroying their habitat.
Yeah.
Stop destroying them.
Yeah.
Stop taking the planet over for our own personal uses
Yeah.
and greed.
I know.
And if we do that, we don't need to know how intelligent they are. I mean, what do we do with that anyway? I've never seen where it's done very much to get out there and then actually save habitat or save species. It might, satisfy the curiosity of a human, but who the hell do we think we are that our species has to have all of our curiosity satisfied?
Lyn, I just never thought of it that way, and I like to think that I'm very sympathetic about animals, but I never thought of it that way. I also was, oh, look at the crow, and he can do this and that, and I just hadn't thought of it that way, and I'm glad you explained that to me, because I think you must truly be a naturalist to leave things as we found them and not go poking around. Huh?
But that's exactly it. I mean, because everybody says, well, this is our planet too. Frankly, I suppose it isn't as much as that we live here, but we have forfeited, by our behavior, we have forfeited the right to call this our planet. We are such a destructive species. And yet, in the midst of all the destruction that we have wrought, we're still so arrogant to think that we can still cage animals because we want to see them. We can still cage them because we want to do studies on them.
Yeah.
We can still stick them into circus because we think they're here to entertain us. They're here for their own reasons. And by God, I doubt we even have a clue as to what their profound and deep-seated and complex reasons even are. I don't think we have a clue to who animals are, not a clue. And we need to leave them alone and let them be who they are, because I really do believe that that's all they would ask of us if we ever listened.
Yes, exactly. Well, naturally you've come to this deep enlightenment because of the work that you do, and I don't think anybody, but very few people on the planet have reached that stage of enlightenment that you have. I hope that's part of your message whenever people are interviewing you, because it's unique, your viewpoint.
Well, I tell people that all the time, is why do we have to keep doing things to animals instead of just letting them be? And to me, Barrett, interestingly, I picked that up when I was a kid. I was fortunate that I had parents who said, we were the house in the neighborhood. Everybody brought the stray kitty or this little, homeless dog or the injured bird, and we would do everything we can for them. And when the animals they brought us, either a possum or mockingbird or whatever, I would think, oh, this is great, Mom. He's and my parents would say, yes, and we're going to go let him go now. Yeah,
right.
So that just doesn't. People want to possess because they want to possess. The number of people who we have gotten, wild animals from, who've had them as so-called pets.
Yeah.
It is, to me, astounding. And every time, and so many people do wake up and say, you're right, I have no right to, what was I thinking? But so many people, I just want him near me. Well, that's fine, but he doesn't want you near him.
Right. People are very acquisitive, and I do not like seeing so many videos about owning an iguana or owning these exotic pets. Yeah, because it just looks dumb. Here's a young woman owning a pet like that, or an animal, and making a pet out of it, and it just looks so damn stupid. And there's a lot of that.
That's out there, there's 6 iguanas who people are saying, I don't want him anymore. I don't want him. He's too big and he smells bad.
Yeah.
And now what do I do with him?
I know. And then they become the victim.
They are. They absolutely are. And it's terrible, because when you think that you have to see somebody with the intellect of an iguana or a monkey or a parrot suddenly being caged and suddenly being victimized like that, it's just...
I know.
It's so wrong. It's just so wrong.
Yeah. Did you grow up in San Antonio then, Lyn? Yeah. And where was your first house then? I'm being nosy, but I'm just thinking about that picture I took, and I just wondered where you were. Were you like inside? Were you, in the Alamo Heights area, or were you way out, or
No, we didn't have that much money. My
Yeah,
father was a milkman, and there were 6 of us kids, so we
yeah,
we were in the kind of central part of San Antonio,
yeah,
kind of the West Avenue Hildebrand area, and that
yeah.
general area there.
Yeah. Because, in the older days, we all lived inside the loop and in comfortable,
Right.
little middle class neighborhoods, and that's what it
Yeah.
was. It wasn't this sprawling mess of today. So,
Oh God, it's terrible today. My mother and father used to tell stories that you could go as far as a certain, very inside piece of West Avenue and look out, and it was still the
yeah,
woods. I
yeah,
mean, it, it's just, again, it is just criminal what we have done to